Support for the nonprofit lab comes from resilience, the capacity to withstand or to recover quickly from difficulties. When life knocks you down, resilience is there to get you back up and ready to go again. Resilience, available inside of you to help you keep going when things get tough or you stumble and fall. Resilience. Welcome to the Nonprofit Lab, a podcast dedicated to the ongoing discovery of how we can all be a part of bigger social change through the lens of the nonprofit sector. I'm your host, Puya Porak. I'm an industrial engineer, human-centered designer, and CEO of MatchNice, a social impact tech startup with a mission to connect the nonprofit ecosystem and maximize social impact. Thanks for joining us on our startup journey as we look to uncover and shake up the status quo in the world of nonprofits. Today, I chat with David Pisaric. David is a Toronto-based digital innovator who spent 30 years helping Canadian nonprofits, NGOs, charities, foundations, community-based organizations all elevate their websites, branding, and design. And he's doing that through his own company, Wow Digital, with the goal of providing effective websites, branding, and design for the nonprofit sector. David has a passion for all things technology, design, brand management, user interface and experience, programming, photography, problem solving, and communications. Having worked with many capacities across the tech world, David is experienced with both technical and business functions from hands-on through to leadership roles. He believes in lifelong learning, and as an expert in his field, he's continually training and mentoring others around him while developing imaginative ways to take processes to the next level. On this episode, we talk about why your website deserves an upgrade and why we should look at this as an investment rather than an expense. We talk about outcome metrics to consider for your website's success, how to pitch an investment in your website to your board, content strategy, and search engine optimization details that will help attract the people you want to your website, and actions that you can take right now to elevate your nonprofit's digital presence. Here's my conversation with David. David Pisaric, welcome to the Nonprofit Lab. How are you?
I am doing great. Thanks so much for having me.
Yes, it's great to have another fellow nonprofit enthusiast and podcaster on the show. I'm really excited to dive into all of your digital nonprofit experience and to share some of your insights with our audience. But before we get into the depth of that experience, tell us a little bit about yourself and how you even found your way into the nonprofit sector.
Awesome question, Puya. So it goes back to, I guess, when I was an adolescent, always volunteering time. I was involved in some youth groups and that type of thing. And it was just part of the upbringing that I had. And when I started working full time, when I graduated from college, started working full time in nonprofits, and that's going back to 2000. So I've been doing web design, branding, digital marketing for nonprofits ever since.
And just curious, what kind of nonprofits were you volunteering for? Have you been attracted towards a specific type of cause or just generally giving back?
I care about making a difference in the world, and so it doesn't really matter to me which way, shape, or form, whether it's education or healthcare or community growth or helping feed people that are malnourished. It makes no difference to me as long as I know that myself and my team at my agency that we're doing things to help humanity.
I love that. And the way that you're now giving back is also in another way through the services that you're providing with helping nonprofits elevate their digital presence. So tell us a little bit about your journey from kind of working in the nonprofit sector to starting your own firm.
I've always kind of taken some side projects here and there that were of interest to me. And basically what happened was I was part of a restructuring at the organization that I was at. There was about I think 86 or 87 people that were let go at the time. And as I was looking for work, I just reached out to my network and I said, hey, I'm available. Is there anything that you have? Can we meet? Can we chat? Just trying to do that networking. They say that I think over 80% of people get their jobs because of who they know, not necessarily their qualifications. So doing that networking side of things, and it just kind of grew from there. And I was like, all right, well, I'm just going to do this. Let's just go all in on it.
Love that. And so tell us about Wow Digital Incorporated, what it is, what your mission is, and the kinds of services that you're providing nonprofits.
Absolutely. So as a digital agency, that means that we do branding, web, for nonprofits and charities, and that is our focus. I would say 95%, 96% of the work we do is in the nonprofit, charity, and community-based organization groups.
What is like the actual kind of work? Like what's the most common type of requests and services that you're providing nonprofits? If I'm a nonprofit, why should I come to you? What kind of help am I looking for?
So there's really everything falls into one of three categories. One is your website looks really old and dated and just honestly kind of looks like garbage, and you want it to represent your organization in the best light possible. A website, I guess a little bit of a side note, a website is really like a marketing communications employee working for you 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365. So, or 366 if it's a leap year. But it's what's out there promoting your organization, letting people know about what you do. So we help elevate and bring to light the key work that your organization does to help differentiate you from, I'm going to say competitor. I mean, we're all in this to win it, right? We're all here to kind of work together and make other people uh, better and kind of elevate humanity as we know it and make a change in the world. But if your nonprofit looks online like it was done 10, 15, 20 years ago, you're not going to be representing your best self. So that's probably about I would say 80 or 85% of the work we do is let's get you a better website. Let's get something that will generate more leads. And we talk about leads in the business world, but in the nonprofit world, a lead could be an email subscriber, somebody who joins your program, somebody who ideally will donate to you, whether it's now or create some kind of user journey so that down the road, 2, 3, 4, 10 years from now, that they're going to want to give to your organization. So that's about 85% of what we do. The other 15 to 20% is actual branding. So logos, brand guides, primary, secondary, tertiary colors, font selection. Take a look at what other organizations are doing in your similar space and figure out what is it that differentiates you visually that will create that memorable key. If everybody in the health space, pardon me, if everybody in the health space is using blues, maybe we should look at using a different color, right? Help differentiate and create that visual cue.
I like
Oh,
how
I
you
said three. I said three. That was
did
only
you.
two.
All right, hit
Right.
me with the
Okay.
third one. All
All right.
right.
Third one. Third one, right? Third one is they just need support on with their website. So they are either overworked and understaffed, or they have no idea how to manage their website. So we come in, we have like packets of time that you can get, and we'll provide that support.
Yeah, and that one I can see kind of how that one escaped a little bit because that kind of falls as a foundation to the services that you're providing. That's we've been uncovering so many different status quo practices and just realities of the nonprofit sector. As someone who's worked for Fortune 500 companies and consulting, and then also in government and now the nonprofit sector, the trend that I've noticed is private sector and military kind of lead the way when it comes to technical advancements, and then you have the private sector right there right behind them, and then government is about 10 years or so behind, and then nonprofit sectors can be even further behind that. And so I think most nonprofit leaders are aware if their website could use a boost or to like elevate. A couple of questions. How have you seen nonprofits organizationally navigate making this decision? Because it's obvious, but getting board approvals or like having the support to make an investment, because it is can be a significant investment for nonprofits to improve their websites. How have you seen that shape up? And for maybe for any executive directors out there listening that are thinking about taking their website to the next level, how have you seen kind of the organizational decision making and management come together to support that decision and next step to go forward with that?
So I've seen this from inside I worked in nonprofits for about 16 years. So I've seen it from that side. And on this side, working on the agency side, I see it from this perspective. So I have a little bit of an interesting perspective on that. So thank you for asking. Quite often, organizations think about their websites as like, oh yeah, okay, we just have a website, right? We're just going to post content there. Over the last 8 to 10 years, a big shift has started to happen. Like you said, nonprofits and charities, they tend to be like a lot further behind. We're hoping to kind of fix that as we work with the organizations that we do. But what we're finding is that they're now catching up and going, okay, we need to take advantage of SEO, so search engine optimization. That's what's going to get the keywords out there into Google land and into Bing. That's going to drive traffic into your website. So they're now going, oh, okay, we need to focus on this. Probably about 10 years behind. What they need to understand, though, is you don't just need a new website. What you need is a digital strategy. You need to take that strategic approach and go, okay, what is it that we could be doing now that would be better than what we have been doing? How can we streamline processes? If you're in Canada, which is where I am, I'm in Toronto, we have our amazing healthcare system. If you're going to triage people when they come into the ER or when they walk into the front desk at the hospital or care center or wherever it happens to be, what is that entire approach going to be that you take with them? Right? The website should definitely be part of that. If you can bring people in and get them to where they need to be, instead of taking up somebody's time, whether it's security desk, somebody at the front desk, oh, how do I get to this clinic? Right? Let's figure that out and let's put something together. And yeah, that might be an app that might have nothing to do with the website, but it should all be integrated in some way, shape, or form. So really taking a customer service approach to it and strategizing and going, okay, here's the journey. Here's the ideal thing that we want to have happen for 70% of the time. You're always going to have somebody that's going to knock on a door or ask for directions or need help or something like that. But if you can get a lot more done, it'll end up being more efficient for your organization. And in the end run, that's going to save you money, right? It's somebody's time dealing with these inquiries. It's somebody's time helping somebody out. Not to say you should just kind of ignore that altogether, right? But if you can create these efficiencies, and that's where the strategy comes into play.
Yeah, so it's not just a facelift for your brand and like a new look and feel, but you're talking about positioning the value of the digital strategy and presence and bringing up search engine optimization and the kinds of metrics that you're talking about with leads and volunteers, donations, brand presence and awareness overall. So the question I had was, how have you seen like leaders in the nonprofit actually position this ask to their boards, or like make, because I could see like, yeah, well, spending whatever thousand on a website right now isn't a priority or whatnot. What have you seen kind of push that decision to a green light?
A few factors. The first and the biggest one that'll kind of help make an impact, if you give your board members a task, give them iPads, bring a tablet, bring a laptop, bring something to the meeting, and give it to one of them and say, hey, find this on our website. Give them a task right there. Give them 30 seconds to find it, 40 seconds, a minute, 2 minutes, whatever you want to give them. Say, hey, I want you to do this. I want you to find this grant that we offer and fill out the form, right? Give them the task, make them actually go through what needs to be done. So that's one tactic. A second tactic would be, or could be, come with a presentation, showcase your analytics. Hopefully you have analytics on your website. If you don't, get in touch with me. We'll get it on your site for free. We won't charge you for it. Google Analytics is a really great platform. One little side note before I jump in is if your website is using Universal Analytics 3, You need to upgrade to Google Analytics 4 ASAP. Come July 2023, it's going to stop collecting data. So you need to be on GA4 as soon as possible so that you have some historical data. Okay, let's take a step back to what I was talking about previously. Come together with a report. Show what your analytics are showing. Maybe there's some really important pages on your site that aren't getting enough traffic, right? That could be a key metric that you want to showcase. If you want to showcase growth in email list subscribers or donations, things like that come through the website, bring that kind of data. But also take a screenshot of your web page, of your homepage, maybe one of the major pages in your site. Go to one of the similar like organizations to yours, whatever it happens to be, take screenshots of their sites. Chances are it's much better than what yours is. We did an audit of over 400 nonprofit and charity websites. There are so many of them that look like they were made 20 years ago. I kid you not. It's just like graphic blocks of copy, and it's just really hard to visually see what's going on there. It's possible your site is like that too. So take a look at what other organizations are doing. It's really obvious how yours would stack up against it.
Yes. And, it's interesting seeing different types of donation experiences integrated with those websites. So making sure that there is a kind of cohesive thread in branding as you go from like your website, whatever state it is, to the actual donation experience, and having that reflecting the branding is really important. So you've brought so much strategic thinking, and I love the example that you gave about like find this on the website. Like that's a great example where or bringing that metrics focus and kind of like presentation angle to uh, building the case to elevate your website. What are some of the questions that you're asking nonprofits when they just come to you and say, hey David, like our website isn't the best, we want to make it better, like we want our website to be top class, like the best. Like what are the questions that you're asking to understand their digital maturity, and how are you tailoring your services to where the nonprofit is?
So before I get into that, I just want to mention to your point about the donation, take a look at your donation form. If you're asking for more than name and email, you really need to evaluate why you're collecting that other data. You want to make a really low barrier to entry for somebody to give you money, right? Build
Yeah,
out the
yeah.
profile down the road. Ask them for more details in an email later on. But if somebody wants to donate money, what is the bare minimum that you need to process that transaction?
Mm-hmm.
And that's what you should be collecting. Definitely get email, and definitely you need the email to send the transaction receipt, or if there's a tax receipt or something like that. So you definitely need that. Want to definitely get name. I think you need that for credit card transactions anyways. If you can enable Apple Pay or Google Pay or PayPal, that makes it even easier to get that transaction to
Mm-hmm.
happen. So just a little side note there.
No, I'm glad you
Um,
brought that in. The ease of transaction, like making it as streamlined and easy as possible, is very important. And on that, like there's sometimes I'm looking to make a donation and I have trouble even finding the donate button on a nonprofit's website. And we've seen research that shows just making the donate button more visible can lead to a twofold increase in conversions for donations. So I'm glad you paused on that donation front. But back to the question about the questions that you're asking and how you're using that info to evaluate your approach.
Absolutely. We bring a strategic approach to our conversations. So our initial consult, we offer free consults. So our initial consult, we're going to be diving in a little bit, finding out why is the website a priority for your organization. I think everybody that's listening to this should be asking themselves that. Why do we care about our website? If you can answer that, you should be able to build a case for funding in some way, shape, or form to be able to invest in it. Don't think of the website as a expense. Think of it as an investment in your organization. It's something that you need to have. If you're not focusing on it, you're missing out on a big chunk of the market. You're missing out on getting help to people that need the services or programs that you offer. So that's that side. So yeah, we'll ask about, what is it that is in the website that you need to focus on. So that's the first thing. Second thing we'll ask about is what would make you really excited when you get a new website. So you've got a new site. What needs to happen to make you really thrilled about that? We talk about we'll then talk about leads and conversions and sales, but in a nonprofit way. So email subscribe, like I was talking about before, email subscriptions, getting donors, getting people RSVPing to events, getting them to subscribe for updates or information about your programs, or even just make a general inquiry, right? So we'll talk about that. We'll talk a little bit about donations and how much you're getting through the website. So it's important to kind of establish that baseline so you can measure against it down the road. And then we'll just kind of talk about roadblocks a little bit. So everybody always goes into these types of projects with the best of intentions. However, there's always something that is preventing the project from getting completed or getting completed on time. And that usually comes down to content. If you're redesigning your website, chances are your homepage doesn't have the right information on it. Only about 35-40% of people are actually going to your homepage. So just keep that in perspective. But what is on the homepage is really critical. And what we end up doing is we'll redesign the homepage, and we're going to have new sections on the homepage potentially, and new areas and new blocks of lorem ipsum placer content. So getting that content generated by our clients takes time. We have people that we can outsource or we can refer you to generate the content and to work with you on building the content. We don't focus on the content, we focus on the functionality and the look and feel. But we can certainly deal with that. So making sure you've got people in place, the resources, the staffing, etc., to work on new content. Maybe there's a new program page, or maybe there's a new layout. Maybe you have 12 different programs and we change the layout of those all together, and we need new blocks of content. Somebody somewhere has to come up with that. So that's usually one of the roadblocks. One of the other roadblocks, quite often, honestly, is approval. So just going back to your question about what is it that executives are seeing or shifting or whatnot, going through an RFP process, request for proposal, is a very painful process on two sides of the spectrum. On your side as the employees working in the organization, as well as us agency owners or freelancers, contractors on our side, because getting the application in, doing it all in the same format, the time and effort is just really expensive. So making sure that you understand what your budget thresholds are. If you can keep it under an RFP, great. If you can't, so be it. It is what it is. You can get in touch with us. We've got some RFPs that we can provide you if you need a bit of a guideline to get started with it. We've got some documentation that we can for sure send over to you. But making sure that you've got budget for it. And it's not just budget for the website. What I mean by that is, yeah, you can pay us 20, 30, $200,000, whatever it is, to build the website, $50, whatever it is, right? You need ongoing maintenance and support to make that come to life and actually work for you in the long run. A website, and I say this all the time, it's not one and done. You need to be putting constant effort into it, whether it's adding content to it, adding functionality to it, making updates, building out new sections, event landing pages, more robust donation functionality, peer-to-peer donating, like what Puya was talking about, right? There's lots of things that should be added to the website over time. It doesn't all have to be there for launch, but you need to make sure that you've got somebody somewhere dedicated to working with you in the long run to give you the support, whether it's 2 hours a month or 30 hours a month. You need to make sure that you've got ongoing budget for that. So yes, being clear on what your budget is, and then understanding, yes, you do need ongoing support for it.
And on the ongoing support front, similar to fundraising for major gifts or even just online fundraising, these are efforts that take a lot of time and patience and consistency to build the type of results that you want to see. Similar to search engine optimization, SEO, like, hey, we're going to build this page out so we're ranking higher on these Google searches for these specific terms and these zip codes, et cetera, et cetera. How are you positioning, like you said, like some things don't need to be for version like launch. How are you helping your nonprofit clients think about the roadmap and evolution of a website like revolution or change, and the kinds of metrics that they should be expecting, and the timing of those things.
So we've developed something that we call our victory program. And it's a 4-session series of meetings, usually about an hour to an hour and a half each. On our side, we end up putting about 12 to 15 hours into it in between. But it's a really strategic approach. So we talk about the organization, what it is, who you are, why you do what you do. That's the first session. The second session, we'll talk about the community and build out some personas or avatars from that. Really understand who is your ideal person that you want to connect with. There hasn't been an organization yet that has one, right? It's usually 5 or 6 or 7. We try to limit it to maybe 3 at most, because you can't serve everybody really well. So we need to pick who are the priority. Not that everybody isn't a priority, right? But there needs to be, what is it? The 80-20 rule, right? Like get with 80%. And so that's why we go with that way. So we talk about who they are. We understand their geographic, their demographic, as well as their psychographic. A lot of people are thinking about psychographics. So for anybody that doesn't know, psychographics are what happens in somebody's mind. So their interests, their passions, what do they care about? Where are they spending their time? That type of thing. So really kind of get a deep dive in on that. Then the next session, the third one, we talk about strategy and tactics. So how is it that we're going to connect with those personas? What is it that we can do? How do we want to involve them? And then what are the tactics that'll make that actually happen? And then the fourth session, we put together a report based on everything that we've come up with in there. And we really identify, all right, here's all the deliverables that you need. Forget about time and money. Doesn't matter, right? This is the ideal, right? And then we rank them, and then we plot them on some graphs and go, okay, how easy or hard is it? And how much time or quick can we actually develop and deploy this type of thing? And quite often that will identify a multi-phase project. So, all right, for launch, we need this, 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 and this. And, within the 6 months afterwards, we'll do this. It's possible. There are a number of sites where it's just, we build it and it's done. And we provide training and ongoing support for them as they need. But, it depends on the timeline. It depends on budget and fiscal accountability. So if your year end, if you have to spend the money by, let's say, March 31st, right? What can we actually achieve by then for you? And how can we best make use of your budget?
Hmm. It seems very similar to how a website agency might work for a for-profit entity. Are there any differences that you think are very important between designing for, like, the approach that you just described for designing for a for-profit space versus the nonprofit sector?
I love that you asked this. I'll say it time and time again. For profit doesn't mean no profit. You need to run your nonprofit as if you were a business. That comes to the same thing with the website. The difference is on a nonprofit website, you're usually not selling something, right? For profit site, I don't know, big shoe company, right? They might be promoting their shoes, or you can buy them online or whatever. Most nonprofits don't have anything to actually sell in that kind of way, but it's about information and putting it out there. There might be some educational components. In terms of the website, though, a website is a website is a website. We've decided to niche in nonprofits because then we can focus on what actually drives those organizations forward and helps them achieve their missions better and faster. And some of that comes down to what are the call to actions, right? You want to, in your website, in your content, in your visual imagery, you want to create some kind of emotional connection with people. You can leverage call to actions to do that. And you can say, instead of donate now, if it's education, donate to buy 15 backpacks, donate to buy 3 backpacks. If it's for food, right, food hampers, all that kind of, feed 10 families, feed 3 families, whatever it happens to be. You want to create that emotional connection. And that's where there's some differentiation from for profit to nonprofit.
Yes, and I love that you underscored the nonprofits are just social impact focused businesses. It's been a recurring theme throughout this podcast, and it's great to hear you uh, beat that drum as well. And I also love that you talked about how to differentiate kind of the donation experience. It's really the premise of what Match Nice is all about. Our fundraising platform is designed to create more transparency and a connection to the impact of your donation, so donors understand what their donations mean in terms of progress and impact. So I love that you kind of pointed towards how any nonprofit can be doing that. Whatever solution that you're using, you can still work to create that emotional connection. You also said, the difference between nonprofits and businesses is they're not really selling anything. Very few nonprofits do have like merchandise and like swag that they're maybe selling on their website. But like what you're saying though is that they are selling calls to action, like take time to volunteer or like donate or participate in this particular event or help us raise awareness for that. So what are some of the biggest lessons you've learned about creating compelling calls to action and the kind of path or that it takes to maximize the engagement for those calls of action?
The best way to create some kind of emotional connection or impact statement is to leverage video and photos, right? What you can do in a 20-second video will outweigh anything that you can write in paragraph form, no matter how long of a PhD dissertation you publish on your website. Nobody's going to read. Not nobody's going to read. Very few people actually spend the time and read online anymore. If they're going to a news site like the Wall Street Journal or something like that, yeah, they'll spend time and read the articles. But when they're looking at your website, they just want to see quick highlights. So understanding the form that people are viewing this on, if it's a mobile device, it's different than desktop. You want to limit the number of characters per word on desktop. You don't want to have like 25 words long and like big block. People scan, right? Understanding that people can scan will help formulate your content strategy. So you need to have not just the digital strategy, but the content strategy on your website as well. Get people what they're looking for as quickly as possible. Think about your own experience. When you've gone online and you're looking around for something, maybe you're looking at buying a present for a loved one, right? And you're looking around. Do you really look at the descriptions all that much? Probably not. Maybe there's like a little bullet, like a paragraph and a couple bullets. You might scan it a little bit. People are doing the same thing with your website. If you think they're not, you are you are giving them way too much credit. Nobody wants to read anymore.
Videos, pictures definitely helps with storytelling. I agree. I mean, it's like why social media is so successful too. It's like all it is images and videos getting blasted 24/7 and endless scroll. Um, well, you clearly have a ton of experience working for all sorts of nonprofits, different sizes, different causes. What have you seen in terms of the difference in the focus for websites for nonprofits that maybe are grassroots, like just beginning or kind of smaller in size versus some of the much larger organizations that are out there, just like Red Cross, United Way type of like massive organizations? Like, what are the differences in the services that, or the focus areas when it comes to website elevation that organizations should think about depending on where they are in terms of the scale and size of their operations?
I think ultimately you need to be realistic in what you can actually achieve. So we were talking earlier, or I was talking earlier about content, right? You need people in your team to be able to create that content, or you need volunteers, or you need an AI platform, or you need humans to generate that content for you, right? Um, Either way, you still need somebody in your organization to either meet with somebody, be interviewed by somebody, or generate the outline that, for example, an AI platform could create for you. And then you also need somebody to actually go and review it before it goes up on the website. So there's still some human involvement needed. The question is how much can you actually afford? And that's kind of where it all comes down to. If you're a much bigger organization, you've got maybe a couple 100,000 a year to throw at a website between all of the employees that are involved with it, all of the processes, systems, servers, plugin options, other software like Adobe Suite, for example, right? So there's all these things that kind of work their way in with it. Uh, if you're a smaller organization or you're just a startup or you're thinking of starting up, if you were to budget maybe 3,000 a year, 2,000 a year, right? You can still get a really decent website. Uh, we had a number of organizations come to us that we had to turn away. Their budgets were just honestly they were too small. We're talking a couple $100, right? And they wanted like really big websites, and I felt bad, to be honest. And so we actually have brought to market a platform to help these small nonprofits. So maybe you're a startup or you don't have a lot of funding. Maybe you've been around for 5 years and you've only got maybe 2-3,000 a year. We've actually built a product. It's called Mighty NPO, if you don't mind me plugging it. And right now we have a promotion. It's 80% off for lifetime. And it's, what does it work out to? The cheapest plan is $73 a month. Get a website that's built on our templates, that's built for nonprofits, that we can integrate CRM, we can integrate donation platforms. It's like a couple of web forms. You fill out, we do it all. You don't have to learn another product. You don't have to learn WordPress or Drupal or Wix or Squarespace or any of those other ones that are out there. We'll just do it all for you. And the intent is to basically help the world one website at a time.
Feel free to plug away, by the way. That's like, because it's a value add for our listeners. And um, you know, in the example of like the nonprofit that has a very limited budget, I know your organization also builds sustainability in the way that you give back to your clients and the people you serve. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Absolutely. Every project that we bring in through Wow Digital, we're planting trees worldwide. So we connected with a company called One Tree Planted, and we are planting 100 trees. We'll work with the organization to pick a location, and we make the donation. So we're giving back in that way. We are green powered as well, so our servers are running off of green, more efficient platforms, and we operate all virtually. So I'm located here. I've got a team that's split up globally. Saves money because we can ultimately put more of your budget directly against your project as opposed to overhead. So traditional big agencies, you're getting maybe 70% of your project budget actually being applied. We're somewhere around 93-94%. So it's more efficient in that way as well. We also recently, over the past year, we launched our $10,000 give back project. And what that is if your scope of work is over $25,000, we're just taking $10,000 off. So it's basically, it's not a government grant. It's not, big corporate sponsors. It's us just trying to help out as much as we can.
I love that. And I think that's a common theme in successful leaders in the nonprofit spaces. They really embrace this culture and the values of giving back, not just in like the services that they're delivering, but how their actual organization operates within and without. So thanks for being a great example of that, David. I've got just a couple more questions for you. We've talked about so many specifics, tactics, like at the theme level down to like Google, like what was Google Analytics for? Like get on that, down to that level of all of the years that you spent in the space of helping nonprofits elevate their digital presence and maturity. What are the greatest lessons that you've learned from this journey that you would impart to the audience?
By far, I think the greatest lesson that I've learned is understanding the value of your meetings. And by what I mean by that is not what you get out of the meeting, but the actual tangible dollar amount of your meeting. If you're sitting in a boardroom and it's filled with C-level executives and you're talking about the website, how much is that meeting actually costing you? Right? Are you trying to sort out, okay, who in house can actually do this? And you want somebody that's already overloaded and overworked? Or can you go to an outside partner like us, right? Maybe I'm a little bit biased here, right? But if you think about the number of meetings that you have and the number of people involved and what their salaries are per hour that they are sitting in a meeting talking about the website, that is, yeah, okay, maybe there's somebody with the skill set in-house that can do the website for you, but bringing all those people together, it's thousands of dollars an hour, right? Getting that and really understanding that and going, okay, this is money that is being spent. It it's part of their job, so they're there. But that time and effort could be better involved by bringing in an expert, for example. So maybe you don't need somebody to actually do the website. You just need somebody to work with on developing the strategy for it. You're not going to, you are, I shouldn't say you're not, you're likely not going to get that out of a C-suite executive board meeting.
Time value of money. Yes.
Right?
That's a good way of looking at like the opportunity costs and helping to make sense of the investment, right? Like you're not only getting this value added service, but increasing the capacity for yourself and the entire team. That's awesome. I said I only had a couple questions, but I actually have two more.
Sure.
what's what's one status quo practice in the nonprofit sector that you'd like to see changed?
It's good enough. That's the attitude that I would love to see changed. Post this on the website, it's good enough, just be done. Right? Like do it. Okay, sure. News release, press release, okay. But why not have a strategy behind the press releases? Spend the time, spend 5 hours a year working on a strategy for your press. If you're a little bit of a larger organization, you're going to have press releases. What's the strategy? Why are you doing it? Just because you have to? Probably. What else can you do with the news release? How can you chunk it up? How can you make it repeatable and chunkable and digestible for social media audiences? What are you doing when somebody lands on that press release to get them to take some kind of action of some kind? Right? Think about things, be more strategic. Don't just do things because that's just how it's been done.
Oh, such a good answer. Because you're getting at like also the definition of status quo is like, yeah, good enough. Like it is, so very, very thoughtful. The one final question I have for you, David, for this episode at least is what is it that you want your lasting legacy to be?
Ooh, that's a good one. I want to know that I have done something to create a difference in the world. Whether my name is on it or not, I don't particularly care. I just want to know that, you know, if we publish a new website for an organization, we launch it. We launched a site last week and we launched one the week before. If that helps at least one person, we've done our job. We've created some kind of change. If we can do something on a bigger scale, if we can help hundreds of people or thousands of people, or dare I think even millions of people, right? Then that means that we've done our job. And it's one of the reasons we worked on creating Mighty NPO was to help more people outside of our range that we'd be able to.
Well, David, I applaud you and everyone in the sector who's helping to move the overall nonprofit sector towards this greater change and this attitude that you bring of it's really for the net benefit and thinking beyond ourselves and working for something bigger. I think it's something that every guest that I've interviewed shares with you, and it's very inspiring. And I'm really grateful for the time that you've taken to share all of your experience, insights, and wisdom when it comes to not just websites, but as we've talked about, overall operational management and thinking strategically about your nonprofit. So, David, it's been a pleasure. Thanks so much for joining, and I hope to catch up with you again soon.
Thanks so much, Puya. I appreciate being here. If anybody wants to get in touch with me, just head over to wowdigital.com or you can shoot me an email, david@wowdigital.com.
Oh, and don't forget, let's plug your podcast too.
Absolutely. It's the Nonprofit Digital Success Podcast. We publish an episode every other week. We've been doing that for about 2 years now. And everything is, or almost every episode is focused in some way, shape, or form on how to improve your digital presence, whether it's strategy or specific tactics or reaching out to influencers to do influencer marketing, all kinds of stuff like that.
Thank you, David. Talk to you again later.
Thanks so much, Puya.
Cheers. Well, that wraps up episode 12 of the Nonprofit Lab. I hope that you found some value and new energy to reevaluate your nonprofit's website strategy and to take it to the next level. We'll include links to David's organization and podcast as part of the description of this episode, so be sure to check that out if you're interested in learning more. As always, we're going to end on a quote. Here's the quote to close this episode out. Aesop, the guy who did all of the fables, Aesop's fables, he said, "Don't let your special character and values, the secret that you know and no one else does, the truth, don't let that get swallowed up by the great chewing complacency." With that, thanks for tuning in. We would appreciate if you like, subscribe, rate, and share the Nonprofit Lab with friends and colleagues, family, anyone that you think might find value in our episodes. It really helps us out. Until next time, be well.